Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for January 19th, 2021. Seating in the council chambers remains limited to allow for social distancing, and there are still many residents in our high-risk population. For those reasons, we will also continue allowing citizens participation through video conference. To learn about all the ways you can watch the meeting and to participate remotely, we encourage you to visit www.victoriatx.gov/talk-to-council. There are many options for how you can participate in our meeting tonight, ranging from watching on TV or speaking in citizens' comments through Zoom. At this time, I will ask our city secretary to call the roll.
Councilman De La Garza.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Solis.
Here.
Councilman Bachnight.
Here.
Councilwoman Scott.
Here.
Councilman Young.
Here.
Councilman Lofgren.
Here.
And Mayor McCoy.
Here. I will now open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As always, I'd like to welcome citizens to our meeting, those who are here tonight and those who are joining us online. We'll now move into communications. Mr. Etienne, do we have any announcements tonight, or I think you want to introduce somebody for an
Yes,
update?
yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have one announcement tonight, and that's an update on COVID-19 and vaccine distribution. And Chief Fox and Mr. Gonzalez are here to provide us an update.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, Mr. Etienne. Just wanted to give a very quick and brief update on the City of Victoria's vaccination plan and progress. On December 28th, we received 200 doses of Moderna vaccine, and that was dedicated for Phase 1A, which are healthcare providers and first responders. That next day, we began vaccinating that group, and that group included Victoria Fire Department, Victoria Police Department, Victoria County Sheriff's Office, and Victoria County Fire Department. We began vaccinating those folks very quickly, and to date, we have administered over 210 vaccines. And I know your question is, well, you got 200, how are you doing 210? Great question. What all the vaccine providers are finding is that you get one additional dose out of each vial, so it's a bonus for us, so we're able to vaccinate more people. So through this effort, we've been able to vaccinate well over 200 first responders and other city essential staff. As more vaccine becomes available, we'll continue to roll that program out to the rest of the city essential staff and other groups that may need that vaccine that fall into those high-risk categories, Phase 1As, Phase 1Bs, that type of situation. So we don't know if we're getting any vaccine at this time, but we're definitely on the lookout for it and ready to receive it. We did get confirmation today that our second dose for all of our first-round folks was shipped, so all those appointments will be on schedule. Unless you have any questions, that's all I have to add on the city's plan. Yes, sir.
Chief Fox, what kind of participation rate are you having?
We're seeing when it initially started, I would say 30%, but as the word got out and people got more comfortable with it, it's approaching 50%. Great question, thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez. We have a great team behind him to talk about our community vaccination plan, from Chief Arredondo to our Emergency Management Coordinator, Rick McBriar.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Good evening, Mayor, Council. It is nice to be back and deliver some good news to everyone here. It's been, it seems like a year of not so great news leading up to this, but Health Department, as of late this morning, we received our first allocation of COVID vaccine to provide to the next tier, 1B, in a large amount. We received 1,000 doses of Moderna vaccine late this morning. The plans are in place to operate a mass vaccination hub, as Chief alluded to, with coordination with Victoria Fire, Victoria PD, Victoria Emergency Management, as well as the hospitals here in Victoria County. So we are prepared to move forward with that. Those are the plans in place. We realize 1,000 doses of vaccine may seem like a lot, but it really isn't in the grand scheme of things. So we really ask the public to be patient and continue to be patient with us as we receive slowly more vaccine as it comes to us and comes to the community. It's going to be a little while till we're able to get enough vaccine to vaccinate everyone who wants it. So again, we just ask for patience in that as we move forward. This first clinic that we operate is going to be available by registration and by appointment only. We will open up that registration beginning tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. They can both call in to a hotline. That number is going to be 580-5796. They're also able to go online if they prefer to do that on a link that was pushed out today in a press conference that we will post on our social media pages as well as be pushed out to our local media. Just again, we just ask for the public's patience as we move forward. Vaccine still is coming in a little bit of time, as Chief alluded to. There's a lot of uncertainty as far as when the next doses will be coming. It's really completely up to the state and how they allocate those to us. We expressed our need, expressed our interest in having more vaccine pushed to us quickly. But again, we're just kind of playing the waiting game at this point. A lot of times we don't know until a few days before it gets shipped to us, and that's kind of where we're at right now. The plans moving forward is going to be to operate the mass vaccination hub moving forward as we get large doses of vaccine in for the public. So right now, like I mentioned, we're going to finish up the 1A that we have left that didn't get in kind of some of the first batches that came in the community, and then we'll move forward with that 1B as well this Thursday for that allocation. With that, Janae, anything? Y'all are good? Or Rick? Okay. So if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for me. Yes, ma'am.
A couple questions, just because I tend to not pay attention to something until I decide that it really does impact me. And so kind of two questions. Number one is, what is Tier 1B? And secondly, could you give a little explanation, because I think I understand now why there's not going to be just a, hey, just show up when you want to, why it has to be registered, why it has to be by appointment, and why it's necessary, because I think some people may be waiting for the time when it's just come whenever you want, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. First, the 1As and 1Bs. So 1A in general, and I'll try to kind of go by memory without having that in front of me. 1A was the healthcare workers, first responders, essentially, those who work in hospitals, clinics. Those are vaccine administrators. Those in the healthcare industry, basically, and those provide any kind of medical care to patients in one form or fashion. That is very brief. There's some other subcategories in there as well, as such as last responders, what they call them. Those provide mortuary services. 1B are those age 65 and over, as well as those individuals that may be under 65 but have pre-existing conditions. And there's a list of those. I think that was pushed out on the press release today. Going off memory, I don't know all of them, so I'll refer to that, DSHS guidance. But that's all guidance pushed out by DSHS, and that's what we abide by when we determine those phases and tiers of vaccine allocation. The DSHS allocation panel determines on how much vaccine they're going to push down and also who should get that in what order. So we go by that. Next question regarding the need to schedule appointments versus the kind of just a first come, first serve. We've seen in other communities what's happened in those scenarios, and our concern is we don't want folks, there's a few things there. We don't want large amounts of people in one small area coming and congregating there, because you have the exposure risk, obviously with COVID in a pandemic, it's not ideal. Two, we don't want to run into a situation where we have folks showing up, waiting for hours, and then realizing they don't have vaccine available to them. And at this point in the game, that would have been a very high likely scenario. So we're just trying to really restrict those issues and try to limit those. We'd rather have the congestion on the front end when folks are just at their home calling in or on their computer. There's going to be frustrations. There's going to be, the hotline will be busy a lot. You may get a busy signal. We're going to answer them and deal with those as quick as we can. We're staffing that up as much as possible and to be able to handle that intake. So we know there's going to be frustration there. We're going to apologize ahead of time because it's going to happen. We're doing the best we can with the limited amount of doses. And again, that kind of just goes back to the patience. We just need folks to be patient in this process. You may not get it this week, you may not get it next week, but there's going to be vaccine available eventually for everyone. It's just a matter of time.
David, I have a question. What about the Swift 911 number that you can, put into your phones and they text you? Is that going to be an alternative to the two methods that you just mentioned, or?
So I'm going to let Rick touch on that because it's his system that he's got the expert on. Sure.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
So the SWIFT 911 system is an emergency notification system. Basically gives us the capability to reach back out in our community for those who have registered for an event and who have a published number already. And this one is specifically set up for an event notification. So as information becomes available from the Public Health Department, those people that have registered for specifically COVID information, we can then reverse the message out to them. There's two forms that'll come out through, either via text and or a voicemail call or a voice call that comes out to them. So that way we can let them know registration is now up and running. There are going to be some limitations. Anytime you're dealing with any type of electronic system, there are some limitations unless you're Amazon. I mean, in all reality. The infrastructure that's behind those looks at our phone make exchange here within our community and how best it can dial us the system. Obviously, right now, as of this evening, we had a little over 2,500 people that are registered for the COVID event within the SWIFT 911 system. And so that's going to give us the capability to reach back out, give quick notifications to let people know registration is now up and running. This is the link you can go to and or the phone number you can call. And so it just gives us another way to push information back out to folks.
Okay.
So we have to look all across all the
But that's not
spectrums.
meaning that you're registered already. You just have to
Yes, ma'am.
call or use whatever method we have to.
Yes, and
call
I'll let David talk about the registration process itself. We know there's some other communities out there that have opened up a registration portal, very staff intensive, and it's a very unique thing for everybody to come in and actually register up front, and then staff to call them back to then set up appointments and things like that. And so, but he can touch on that a little bit more. So we're trying to use some of the best practices we've seen throughout other communities as well, so.
And one more question. If another community is doing COVID or the vaccines, can somebody from this community go over there, say Refugio or Goliad or something, or you rather that they just go here?
I can answer that, but I'm gonna let David answer, so he's a little bit better, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
So to answer that, any vaccine, any COVID vaccine anywhere in the state or the country, well, for the state of Texas for sure, is available to any resident of any county, any city, any state, or any country.
Okay.
So we will not turn away anyone. We obviously want our folks to be taken care of, but as far as vaccine allocation goes and the rules associated with that, it is open to any resident anywhere to be able to get that.
Okay.
And then to touch on a little bit what Rick was mentioning about the registration process, again, we want to keep that for those two. We've had a lot of questions about a sign-up list up until this point. There's been frustrations where folks can't sign up for a list. Unfortunately, signing up for a list doesn't really guarantee anything. It just allows us to take their name down and call them back when vaccine becomes available. We prefer just to keep it where there's one point where they can call in or schedule online. Again, like Rick mentioned, it's much less labor intensive, and right now we are very short on labor and resources with the health department because we're dealing obviously with the pandemic itself, the investigations and contact tracing that goes along with that. And then now we have vaccine on a large scale to be trying to deal with. So there's some issues with staffing with those things.
What type of coordinated effort is there with the hospitals to administer vaccines? If they got a shipment of 200, would they still register through the Victoria County Health Department?
That's a great question, and that's one thing we've been working on with the gentleman here in the room that we had pointed out earlier. Citizen Medical Center, DTAR Hospital, as well as Post-Acute Medical, we're all been having coordination calls on a weekly basis, multiple times a week as of late, to coordinate that allocation of vaccines. We talked about possibilities if there's some small shipments that come here and there, maybe 100, that's pretty easy, we can get out in half a day. They may still do it on their own, but if any of us get large shipments, we're going to coordinate together and provide a mass vaccination hub to the community. It's a lot easier for all of us. We could, as a health department, we could have gotten the vaccine out by ourselves. It would have taken us probably a week to do it. But the folks from the city and the hospitals are willing to step up, and we can just knock it out in one day. And I think we're going to follow that model going forward. Obviously, there may be some adaptations along the way if we identify a need for that. But as far as we know, this is going to be the plan going forward with large amounts.
So if you have extra vaccines, do you plan on shipping them to other communities or?
No,
keep everything
we're
here?
keeping those. We're keeping those here to make sure we have all our citizens taken care of first.
David, in the tiers, where do educators fall?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We've had a lot of calls as far as teachers. Right now, unless they're over 65 or have pre-existing conditions, DSHS has not included them in one of the allocations, either Phase 1A or Phase 1B. Yes. Those are, let me clear some, those are State of Texas, DSHS guidelines and priority groups. I've had some calls from multiple
I've
groups.
got a friend of mine who's a educator in Illinois, and they were in a tier so that they can potentially keep schools open, which I think is very important for the community. So I hope that they rethink their tiering who's important. Everybody's important. Don't get me wrong there, but
Exactly.
I hope
We've
they
had several-
reevaluate.
Sure. Yes, sir. I completely agree. And that's been some of the frustrations at this point. There's a lot of groups that definitely a priority for multiple reasons. Unfortunately, we have to kind of go by those that DSH has put towards us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, you said that we have the Moderna vaccine?
Yes, sir. The 1,000 doses that we received for the health department that we're going to use for this vaccination hub are Moderna. Some of the hospitals have received Pfizer. But if you're familiar with it, Pfizer has a very stringent storage requirements, and you have to have ultra cold storage for those Pfizer vaccines. So right now, only hospitals are the only ones, the facilities that I believe in town have the availability to store those doses at somewhere between -70 and -90 degrees below Celsius temperatures. So as a health department, we don't have those very ultra low cold storage freezers. So we do receive the Moderna vaccine for storage purposes. Very good.
Any other questions?
Have you gotten any feel that it's going to be a consistent shipment from now on?
That is a great question, and we talk about this on a daily basis, and I laugh because it's a frustrating part of it. In our opinion, we should have gotten 1,000 doses 6 weeks ago. For our community, we want to make sure we take care of them and get them. We have received some sort of indication that beginning this week, there should be a more consistent allocation of vaccine. That doesn't guarantee anything. I know it's kind of open-ended, but that's the feel we get. And now that we applied for vaccination hub status, and we received that from the state. Hopefully that shows the state that we're well-deserving of more vaccine. And I think if we show them we can get them out this Thursday efficiently and effectively, then we should be eligible to receive more going forward.
Will you be administering those at the community center or the county health department?
Community center is the plan right now.
Okay.
Yep, for the large scale, for sure.
Any further questions? If not, I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the tremendous amount of work that y'all have put in the last few weeks to get us to this point. Getting that hub designation was no small task. And for this group to pull it together as quickly as you did, and to bring all of the entities together that you brought together, 3 hospitals, the merging the resources of the city and the county, the way you did, you're to be very well commended for your efforts, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you. And this announcement today is huge. It's going to start showing our citizens that we are kind of in control to the extent we can be, given the uncertainty. We know what we have to do, and I think all we need from the state is the vaccine, and we'll take care of getting people vaccinated. Thank you all.
Thank you. And just one quick reminder, we want to make sure, just so it's an organized effort on Thursday, vaccines for the public, vaccines are only available for appointment only. So we ask the public, do not show up if you don't have an appointment.
Oh, I had one more question for Mr. McBriar. If someone wanted to sign up for SWIFT 911, how would they do it? You've told us before, but.
Sure. So two different avenues here. So this very specific event, they can actually text the word "add" to a number. Jenna, what's the number off the top of your head? Do you know? There's a lot of numbers floating around in my head. We'll get in a second. So for this COVID event, they could then text the word "add," and if they're anywhere tech savvy, they're going to get a response back saying the number's been added. The best example I can use for you is if we have an event, say like a community event that's occurring like Boot Fest, we could put up a sign saying for additional information related to Boot Fest, text the word Boot Fest to this number, and then as we go through the evening, we can update it saying, performers running 10 minutes behind, they'll be on at 10 o'clock. So this event was set up, and the phone number is 361 433 4554.
And they do not have to download the app.
Yeah, and this one, they do not have to download the app on this one. It is an event-driven, and so it's going to be a one-way communications that we simply just push out information related to that. And then on the SWIFT 911 process itself, we can grab public record, phone records that are out there, but that is constrained by, obviously, cellular usage. And so on a normal day, in and day out, somebody could just type in the word SWIFT 911, and they can go in and see our portal, and then they can go to either our website, there's on the city's website as well, there's a link to that, and that gives us a capability. So if we're working with the fire department, working with the police department or the sheriff's office, we have a large-scale event, and we want to geographically locate something that we say we have a 2-mile radius that we're trying to deal with a situation in, we can then reach back out and geographically grab that and any number associated within that area. So folks can normally go to that at any time through the websites or through our Facebook page as well. And we kind of put it out there on a regular basis, so.
And how do they sign up? They go to some webpage?
If you want to sign up for the SWIFT 911 process itself, just on any regular day, you want to get your name and number into the system, you can go to the website. That'd be the best location. The county website, city website, look up emergency management, and you'll see the link and just click on it. And it'll take you straight to the page, and there's a registration portal. Jenna made mention earlier, for this event, as a person puts in their number, it simply just sends them back a text. Obviously, there are some constraints. If you're on a landline, it's not going to send it back to you, but it automatically registers your number into there, and so they don't have to do anything else. So.
And I'm sorry, my ears to hand had a glitch. 43354.
4-5.
Say it again.
Your transposition is backwards.
4554.
And that's to
45,
get
54.
information about,
And
hey,
just simply
hey, now you
text the
can
word
register
add.
for COVID.
Yes, ma'am. Just simply text the word "add" to that number, and once again, as of this afternoon, there's around 2,500. And then as soon as we get information, like tomorrow morning, we'll be pushing out a notification. The text message will come out saying registration is now open at this registration portal, and then people can go there, and also they can then call, and then we'll also put out a voicemail with that as well, a voice call. So.
I found that if I just keyed up the number and then under messages or text, and then I put the word "ed" in the message and it came up right away.
Good.
It
Yeah.
sent me back a message.
Yeah. And there's
So that's how I got in. That seems to me easier than trying to go through all those other websites.
It will, whenever you do text that number, it will send you some information to be able to download the app, but you don't need to download the application to receive those COVID-19 notifications that like we'll send out in the morning. If you do want to go that step further and download the SWIFT 911 public application, that'll be where you're in our system for severe weather alerts, things like that. But you
Okay.
do not have to, at least in this instance, download the
Okay, because it does
application.
say download 911 public from app, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, so you don't have to do that, but you can if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The word is "add," ADD, is what you're
Yeah,
going to text.
yeah, add.
I got that one spelled right.
Didn't get those reversed.
Put 'em in the right order?
Okay, anything else? All right.
Thank y'all.
Okay,
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Mayor, I would also like to thank all the local churches and also the organizations that put on events for MLK Day. So from what I understand, we had a lot of churches that did have events. So we want to thank them for putting on those events to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. Dr. King would have been 92 years old had he lived today. So I just wanted to thank the churches and the local organizations for putting on some events.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Ms. Hilbert, I understand there are no public
Recognitions?
recognitions tonight or any
No, sir, there's not any.
proclamations or anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on for items from council. We have any items from council this evening? All right. I will then move on to citizens' communication. I have one card from Mr. Vonderow? Is that? Call me Mike. Mike? Please come forward.
Thanks for having me, City Council. I live at 2204 East North Street, Lot 20A, and just wanted to thank Code Enforcement for all the work they do at the trailer, because if they didn't come, none of the trash would get picked up, you know. We got a whole bunch of trash on 22A, mattresses. It looks like a 10-foot Christmas tree, you know. And it's been there a couple months, and we got nothing but mattresses. And also, I live on 20A, and lots of suspicious traffic, especially at night, are cutting through my property, and a lot of sketchy people are parking on my property. And I put some orange concrete pylons up so they can't do that, and they just run over them, you know. And this is happening 24 hours a day, especially at night, you know. And it's hard to feel safe, you know, with all these sketchy people coming by foot, coming by bicycle, people dropping them off, and this goes on 24 hours a day. It never stops or slows down. About every 3 hours, people are being dropped off. It's kind of like a rock concert that never ends, you know. And I mean, it's funny to you, but it's not funny to me. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to stay at my place tonight, and I'll stay where you are. But I have these large orange concrete pylons, and they just run right over some, you know, and someone just messed up his Mercedes, hit his fender on it, and I figured that would work. I guess I need no parking signs or something, but it just keeps on going and going. And I want to thank the police officers for patrolling. They did give someone a ticket for drug paraphernalia. That was on felony probation, a ticket. So they are doing their job, and I appreciate what they're doing, because right now it is not safe there, Thanks, and have a good day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak tonight? Seeing none, is there anyone online that wants to speak to council? Okay, then we will close the citizens' communication. I don't believe there's any items with public hearings, and we'll move straight into the consent agenda, please.
Item D1 on the consent agenda is the adoption of the minutes from December 15th, 2020. Item D2 is a resolution approving the Victoria Sales Tax Development Corporation budget amendment for the Crestwood Phase 2 construction project. Item D3 is an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the City Code related to library borrowing privileges. That's on its second reading. And item D4 is a resolution approving the TCEQ annual water system fee for the city's public water system in the amount of $72,987.95.
If I may clarify, item 3, D3 is a second and third reading,
Yes,
correct?
Mayor, that is the intent, that tonight's reading be both the second and third reading, as is our normal practice. Thank you.
Could I also clarify, I believe she said the first item was the minutes of December something, because she said 2020, and the agenda says January 5th, 2021.
I do apologize. It is January 5th, 2021. That's my fault. Thank you.
So move.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Now we'll move on for action items for council, please.
Item E1 is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding for economic development cooperation.
I think that's my item. This is I think, an important statement for our community about the importance of economic development. This has been a year where we've kind of reevaluated our approaches to economic development. And I think that this community has really come together and worked together to put us in a position to do a more purposeful job at it, and to bring 5 groups that either, the importance of these 5 groups is they either have the resources or can provide the incentives for large economic development projects and stuff. And it's just kind of a non-binding agreement where we agree to talk and keep in touch with one another when it comes to items of economic development. And I don't know if this has been done in the community before on a basis where we're actually making a public statement that it's important to all of us to work together, share resources, share ideas, so where we all know what the others are doing and what the intent is. And I think it's a very strong statement for our community of how serious that we take this matter. Because economic development and the growth of our tax base, our property tax base, is the way out of a lot of the issues that we deal with in this city. And I think everybody is committed to do that, and I think this is a strong statement toward getting that done with our partners. So that's why I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
I move to adopt item E1.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I want to thank you for working on this. It's been 6 to 8 months you've been working on this with these other entities, and everybody's on board, and I appreciate your leadership on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bolton. I appreciate that. Any other discussion on the matter? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Item E2 is a resolution awarding a contract to Austin Generators for the installation of emergency generators at the police station and community center in the amount of $732,325.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is an item that you all are familiar with. So I'm going to kind of skip over a lot of the history, understand that it is a grant-funded program with a 25% match from the city. We did go out for bids on the contractor to install the generators at the community center and at the police station. And we received 2 responsive bids. The lowest and the recommended bid to you tonight is Austin Welder and Generator Service, Inc. They bid $732,000. Remember that we had $806,000 in the budget in the grant and the award, so it is under budget. They're roughly 10.1% lower than the next lowest responsive bid, and they estimate they can be on time with the RFP, the requested 200 days. So with that, I'll be glad to answer your questions. We do also have Ronnie Lane from Austin Welder and Generator Services available on Zoom. I'm not sure if Mr. Mercer made it or not to Zoom, but we do have Mr. Lane, and we'll be glad to answer anything. But our recommendation is award of a contract.
I move we adopt item E2.
Second.
I have a question for you. Austin Welder and Generator Services has in their bid 160 days, but in your presentation you have 200.
Yes, sir. We negotiated that after the bids closed. And they had requested, after looking at orders and how long it would take them to get the specific generators they're looking for, they expect to receive those in 154 days. And so they didn't feel like they could meet the 160-day requirement in their proposal. And since the RFP did say 200 or less, we went ahead and moved to the 200. They were still the lower price.
So that puts us after hurricane season?
Just barely. It'll put us in June, mid-June, so.
It'll put us past mid-June.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess late.
160 would hit sometime in hurricane season, 200 won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was there any further discussion, since we have a motion and a second? Hearing none, I'll call for the bid. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D3 is a resolution awarding a contract to Brannan Paving Company LTD for the Crestwood Drive Reconstruction Phase 2 in the amount of $3,786,996.31.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is for, as she described, second phase of Crestwood between Laurent and Navarro. And we're going to do a little tag team on this one. Lauda Gonzalez recently accepted the position of Budget Procurement Manager in late 2020. So she's going to go over the actual procurement method, the history, how we got to this competitively sealed proposal method. And that's part of the agenda. She's going to go over the procurement method, then we'll go over project description. That's where I come in, and then a recap. So I'll introduce Lauda right now.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Ken mentioned, I will be going through the street and utility construction projects procurement history. Historically, the City of Victoria used Local Government Code 252. Now, under this code, we would award the contracts to the lowest responsible bidder. Now, this allowed for limited evaluation opportunities. There were some exemptions to 252, such as calamity that requires immediate appropriations in order to preserve and save for public safe and healthy and health, as well as any unforeseen damages to public property, machinery, equipment. I know council, from time to time, you will see some emergency contracts that come through where y'all are ratifying the contract. You're not awarding it because it falls under this category. We used 252 for a long time, and then we kind of thought about it, what is the best value for the city? And when thinking of best value, you can look at Government Code 2269. Now, here are just some key terms under 2269 that are good to know when we're going through this chapter. Architect, engineer, facility, general conditions, general contractor, and public work contract. What I want us to look at here is facility, and the definition under 2269 states, unless otherwise specifically provided, an improvement to real property, which would include our streets, utilities, roads, and buildings. Now, under Government Code 2269, there are various methods that we can use. Construction manager agent, construction manager at risk, design build method, request for qualifications, and job order contract. Now, those first three that I mentioned, the construction manager agent and construction manager at risk, design build method, do not offer best value to the city because we have in-house personnel that provide these services for us. We have city engineers, we have public works inspectors, we have a contract administrator that will provide those services for us. So that would not be best value for the city because we already have people that do that on staff for us. We are going to go into more detail over the competitive bidding method and the competitive sealed proposal method under 2269. Now, under 2269, the competitive bidding method, again, awards to the lowest bidder. We are able to look at some qualifications such as financial records, but the criteria is based on the lowest bidder. That is who will be selected. There's no weighted criteria that we can base it off of. So we went from 252, now we're at 2269, where we're trying to find the best value, and we tried the competitive bidding. That didn't work out the way we wanted it to, so we went ahead to competitive sealed proposal. Now we're still under 2269. This way we could get the best value for the city. Under 2269, competitive sealed proposal method, we're able to base it off of weighted criteria, rank our offers, and negotiate a price to get the best value for the city. Are there any questions at this point over the procurement method? No? Okay, great. Well, I just want to thank y'all, and I'm going to go ahead and tag Ken back in so he can finish up.
Thank you.
I think that went over really well of how we now are doing the competitively sealed proposals. This is what we came up with on our weighted criteria to determine the best value for the city. Again, we looked at price at 35%. We looked at the schedule is 20%, past performance 20%, available resources 10%, overall qualifications 5%, corporate stability and history, 5%, and references, 5%. In our committee, we have myself, Mike was involved in it, Daryl Seibert, the assistant city engineer, Mike Petro, the public works engineer, and Philip McGill, or it could be Lauda, depending on who's available for that. I just want to point out that a lot of cities have competitively sealed proposals, and their criteria is all over the place. I saw one city where it kind of defeated the purpose because they put price at 85%. So we tried to weight it so that we can look at everything versus just, again, focusing on price. That was our main objective. On this particular proposal, we received two proposals, one from Brannan Paving and one from Lester Contracting. We looked at reviewed both of them. The committee looked at it. Price, of course, Brannan Paving was lower, so they met the full 35%. Lester was a little bit low. Per schedule, Brannan was at 600 days. Lester put their proposal together at 365 days. Past performance, Brannan has done phase one. They've done a good job as far as keeping the citizens contacted and in turn with the project. They're really keeping them posted. They're giving them notifications, working with their parking. They've worked good with Dick's grocery store. So that helped them on their past performance. Lester, they've done a lot of local job, a lot of city job projects, not as many of the large projects that involve, a collector or an arterial project. Available resources, both of them have good resources that can do the job. Qualifications, again, they equaled. Stability, they're both very good companies. And references, they both had all the references. But in the end, Brannan received the higher score of 95%.
I'm sorry, the math is bothering me. If you've determined the percentage that each of these categories is going to have in terms of weight, these charts, isn't this just their score?
Yes, that is their score.
It's not their percent.
No, it's their score.
It's their score.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm looking at this going.
You're right. It's 30. We did it in 5-point increments. It makes it easier because if you start doing ones and twos, we came up with the plan of making it in 5-point increments.
Okay.
Mr. Gill, do you do the evaluations aside from price prior to the bids being opened?
No.
So it doesn't skew how you're doing it?
Well, no, because we want to look at time. They put the time in on this project. And
Okay,
we don't
so
know
you
we don't know who's going to bid the project until we absolutely open that competitively. It's sealed. And that day is when we get them. So we don't know who's going to bid the project. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but there's a way to do it.
There, if I may, under construction manager at risk, 2269 actually describes a two-step process, which allows more of what you're speaking of. I think
Okay,
it's about
so it has to
where
be
you
under-
can do it's a qualification deal first, and that's where you rank your short list folks, and then you ask them to come back with their price proposal.
But that's under CMAR of the code.
That's under CMAR at risk. I
Okay.
have seen other people do it, but when I read 2269 under competitive sealed proposal, I don't see a two-step process listed.
That's correct, Mayor. Some people describe the competitive sealed proposal process as a two-step process because unlike competitive bidding, where you simply award it to the best score, the competitive sealed proposal process does allow you a quasi-second step to negotiate with the proposer. But you're absolutely right about what you're describing, that combination of RFQ and RFP is really the CMAR process.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, once we went through the score, then we went into the negotiations phase. And when we started talking to Brannan Paving, we had to receive their schedule of values. We bid this project as a lump sum, which was the most difficult way for us, but we wanted to see how that would help the city in getting the best value. And we did that to make that contractor look at that job. Even we gave him the set of plans, so he knew everything. He looked at the entire set of plans. He did the takeoff, and when he provided us his schedule of values, he gave that to us. We, of course, had our basic takeoff of the project, so we were able to compare the two. During that time, while we were comparing them in prior to the negotiations, we looked at them. We found a huge discrepancy in the 36-inch pipe that was on the project that had to be put in versus what the schedule of value showed. We brought Brannan back in, discussed it, and they said they just missed it. They missed the items. They went back to the drawing board. We said, okay, what would be give us the cheapest amount you could do to put that 36 in back into the project. That's fair. I mean, we don't want to take a contractor and just take advantage of them. And they did that, and they gave it to us at a cheaper price than what their original schedule of value showed. That's what led to the final negotiated cost of $3,786,996. And we feel, we talked about other ideas, other discussions. One of them is there any way you can move this project along quicker? And a lot of it has to do with those outlier utilities, AT&T and AEP. We've been in contact with them to get them moving on the job. And invariably, they wait till the last absolute minute to start. And sometimes that pushes that contractor back. And in this case, Brannan has that already kind of built into their days. But if they can get ahead of time, we're hoping this project moves quicker. Project overview, it's the same 3-lane section that we're working on phase 1, replacing a 12-inch water line, rehabilitation, replacing the 8-inch sewer line, improving storm sewer. A lot more on this job was involved than in the previous one. As the design engineer looked at the whole area, he found that the area was greater than what was originally built in the system, so we wanted to add more storm sewer to drain that road and keep it from flooding. There's going to be sidewalks on both sides. The south side will be an attached sidewalk. The north side will have a detached sidewalk. And there's the cross section. It's kind of hard to see, but again, it shows the curb, 12-foot outside lanes, and then a center lane. The center lane purpose is there's a lot of businesses and a lot of residential. And just doing a 4-lane road, it essentially turns it into a 3-lane road. And looking at Crestwood as a whole, at every major intersection, Crestwood is 3 lanes. It always necks down to 3 lanes. So we just kept it consistent. Reasons for the increase in the price from our estimate, there's been going on a material shortage due to COVID. I think that's almost across the board with everything we see out there. That includes aggregates, asphalts, concrete, pipe, everything is shortage, so suppliers are kind of kicking up the price. We also changed the concrete from a river gravel based concrete to a limestone. Everybody knows, and the citizens and y'all, that for whatever reason, you'll notice that our streets, concrete streets, existing ones, Sam Houston, Guy Grant, LaSalle, even Glasgow, all the time they're pushing up against Navarro, and they either leave a bump or in the winter they pull away and leave a drop. What's happening, it's real interesting, is that river gravel has a coefficient of thermal expansion, and it is off the chart. It's one of the highest ones in the state of Texas. And the state, upon their research, said they're not using that concrete anymore because it moves. And we've gone to the limestone to limit that and keep that from happening because that is frustrating for all of us. So that was one of the increase in costs. The other one is, of course, what I mentioned, we're upsizing that storm sewer to pick up that extra drainage area. Project timeline, February, we're securing the documents. March, we're expecting them to complete phase 1. Real simple process, same contractor. They're just going to move and flip barricades into phase 2. It will still be one-way eastbound. When they get to Laurent, then Laurent to Ben Jordan, it'll be back to its 3-lane section. And then November 22 is expected completion date. And moving forward, what we want to do is continue to bid the projects as competitively sealed proposals. And in lieu of the lump sum, so we don't have any discrepancies in the quantities, is we're going to put those quantities in there. And they'll still give us a price. That allows us, should we have an overrun or an underrun, we know exactly what we're getting back. In other words, if we can get out there and inspectors looking, we're looking, and there's already an 8-inch water line in there. Well, we don't need to put that in. Now we have a unit price that we can pull out of that project. If it's a lump sum, it's sometimes a little harder to do. So we're going to go with that, and that's going to help us, help the contractor, yet we can still value engineer as we go through the project. There'll be items that GeoGrid, the contractor may have a better alternative than the one we're speccing that is just as good, but hey, it's cheaper. So we want to listen to the contractor as we negotiate these projects. And that's it. If y'all have any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you were talking about past performance, you said you gave Brennan a higher grade because they had already done arterials a lot.
Yes, sir.
If you look at all the arterials that have been done over the last 10 years, how many various contractors have actually done arterials?
We've had three or four. We've had Brannan Paving, we've had SER out of Houston, and Triple B out of Houston. And then one of Brannan's jobs, the paving was actually done by a subcontractor out of Houston. So we've had several.
Is there a reason, like we only had 2 bids? Is there a reason we don't get the bids from Houston or?
What I've understood and talked to those contractors is they like it to be 10 million. That's their, and the reason is, and I've talked to them, is the volume of people they have to bring down. They have to house them. They can't drive back and forth, so they have to find housing. They have to pay them. They have to feed them, and then they're paying them, overtime and travel time back and forth. And if they need a piece of equipment, it's not as simple as running to their yard and bringing it over. They got to truck it in from Houston, and we've talked to them a lot, and they can get competitive on the larger ones, but when they get into this $3, $4, $5 million range, it's a challenge. Unless they're here. And we've had a couple of jobs where they're doing, SCR, for instance, was doing Sam Houston, and we had them come in and do the downtown sidewalk job. They were here.
If this project was done in Houston, would the price be 3.7 something million?
I think it may, honestly, I think it might be a little cheaper. And that's because of the competitiveness there is in Houston and just the volume, the suppliers, there's more of them. In other words, there's more concrete companies. We have 2. And only one can supply that volume of concrete to keep that pavement pouring.
How long have we been using, or how long have the concrete companies here been using that limestone base?
This will be the second project.
Okay,
Placido Benavides was the first one.
okay.
Crestwood Phase 1?
Oh, Phase 1 also. You're correct, yes. Placido was the first one, Crestwood, Phase 1 was the second one, and this will be the third one. And what we're doing to kind of, since I got time and we're kind of winding down anyway, on those streets, we're experiencing that movement. We've worked on Glasgow, we've worked on LaSalle, and we've done Guy Grant. And what we've done is, in conjunction, we talked to a professor at A&M, and of course, he's highly disagreeable sometimes when he talks about coefficient of this thermal expansion, but I keep taking pictures and say, look, it's moving. What we did is we cut the pavement all the way through, steel everything about 15 to 20 foot back from the edge of Navarro. And we cut 1.5 inch cut in it. We cut it twice, one way, one the other, and we pulled out that sliver, put expansion board material in there, and then caulked it up. Well, it's interesting to know that on Guy Grant, that 1.5 inch gap that we put in there and we fit it tight is now 4 inches wide. It's moved that much already. That concrete has shrunk back away from that 15-foot piece, going up north towards Simpsons. It's moved away. LaSalle is about 1.5 inches, and Guy Grant is about 2 inches. So it's still moving. And back in the day when we did Miori Lane, that contractor, which was Williams Brothers, assured us concrete will stop moving after 5 years. And that's not been the case with this stuff.
Well, we have a double whammy. The concrete moves and so does the dirt underneath.
That's true. I don't think it's it's just, it's amazing to watch it, but we're going to go, like I said, Sam Houston, we're putting that one out soon to kind of keep in line with TxDOT because they're going to fix the road for us. We want to keep it from not doing that again. So far it's working on those other streets.
And I'd like to thank you and staff. We were up here discussing this bidding process in the past, and the values that we found, not just monetarily, that were important to us. So I think that this new process will be good for the community overall, so thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to thank staff, Gilbert, Thomas, Lauda for helping. They did a great job on working through the semantics of it. So I'm just kind of following their lead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill.
I move we adopt E3.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second on item E3. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
That's it.
And I believe that's the end of our
Yes, sir.
items. So
We'll
we
have an
will
executive
Be
session.
recessing into executive session.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
The
Mayor.
council will recess for executive session on the 19th day of January 2021 at 5:58 PM. The subject matter of the executive session deliberation is as follows. Executive session in accordance with the Texas Government Code 551.072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property interests due to the fact that deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the city in negotiations with a third party.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe there will be any action taken after executive session, so we will not reconvene. Thank you.
Very